Hey guys, welcome to our Season 7, Episode number 1, spoiler cast of Game of Thrones. That's right, with me in studio this week, I've got John and Joe coming back for a reunion tour from our Season 7 preview show that came out last week. We break down everything that happened in Episode 1, and fair warning, total spoilers ahead. Spoiler City. I can't believe Daenerys is dead. Guys, thank you. Enjoy!
Hold on to your butt.
Hello and welcome to another Hold On to Your Butts bonus episode. Going over Game of Thrones Episode 1. Since you guys enjoyed our pre-Season 7 episode so much, we decided we're going to make this a weekly shindig. And I've got the boys back. I've got Joe and John back in the studio, my Game of Thrones experts. Again, I kicked those losers to the curb. That's right. Blev, White, and Buddy are officially fired until next week's show. They're out because those losers do not watch Game of Thrones. And instead, I've got my two resident experts of Westeros here to join me to break down, boys, Episode 1 of Season 7. Yes, Joe?
Brogan, does this feel like football season to you? I feel like every week, every day, I'm like, what's the next happening? What's the injury report?
That is totally true. And it's like Sunday, too. Like, they are owning Sunday, that Sunday night spot. It's amazing, yeah. We actually even brought up the idea that there's a bracket going on right now. So we have so Joe and I are coworkers, and we're having these lunches, where we discuss with a bunch of our other nerdy coworkers who enjoy to watch Game of Thrones, like a breakdown where we bring up a map of Westeros and we start talking through everything. And during our discussion today, we figured out that there's almost like an NCAA like Final Four that's happened right now, if you think about it, right? Because you've got Jon Snow in the north versus the White Walkers. And then in the south, you've got Cersei and Euron and versus Dany and crew. So it's almost like whoever, like those are the two battles that Final Four is taking place throughout this season. And our theory, I think, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but our theory together is that like whatever is the result of that is going to be the focus of next season. So if the White Walkers beat Jon Snow, then they're pushing through to King's Landing to take on whoever wins in that war. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I felt like it's always a song of ice and fire, right? And Of course, the fire is dragons or the people, and of course, the ice might be the White Walkers, but we'll see. Yeah, I feel like it's an end bracket, but I feel like, too, every day I'm just more and more excited about the next Sunday to come.
I know. We're getting so close. I think so. This episode, you're going to be listening to this on a Friday. I think our plan moving forward is going to be try to do this a little bit earlier in the week so that we can get a little bit fresher reaction to Sunday's episode. But with that, let's just get right into it. How about that first fucking scene? Oh my God, that was amazing. It took me a second. When I was watching it with my wife Kendall, I was it opened on Walder Frey, and I thought, like, it totally got me. I was like, they never do this. They never do a flashback. And I thought we were going to see maybe her sons get kidnapped and how we saw his sons get killed and put into a pie and, like, see that whole backstory. And I looked over at Kendall and I said that, and she was like, no, that's totally Arya. And I was like, oh, you're right. Okay, first of all, maybe before we get to this, know that full spoilers. I feel like I should have said that first. Too late. Yeah. Full spoilers for season 7, episode 1 to come in today's show. But yeah, let's go back to the spoiler that I just let out of the bag. That was Arya. I mean, that was such a powerful way to start season 7. Like, couldn't have asked for a better opening, I don't think. Now, do they always do cold openings?
Yeah.
They always do.
Done it. I mean, I've been so... we were kind of chatting a little bit earlier in the week, and so we've got a roommate now who's never seen Game of Thrones before, and so we're watching it with her, and it's like so cool to get to experience it again from the very beginning.
Yeah.
With someone who has never seen it before, so like her reactions are like fresh. It's not. It's not like, oh, hey, I knew that was going to happen, but oh, it still kind of surprised me. No, it's like it's right there. And so, at least as far as I can remember, they've always done cold openings, but this was probably the best cold opener I remember ever watching.
You know what was so cool about it is, obviously knowing that was not actually Arya in the real world, and in fact that actor did such a good job. The guy who portrays Walder Frey, to like put in these little idiosyncrasies, these little like tiny things that you can start to wink to the audience, and that all of a sudden you get, oh shit, no, this is obviously Arya, and he like starts to bring up the Red Wedding and like starts to congratulate all of them. There was maybe my favorite piece of dialogue, one of my favorite pieces of dialogue that I've ever heard, like writing lines in that scene, is when she says, if you kill all the wolves but leave only one, then the sheep are never safe. And it was just like, oh, drop the mic. Like, that was so awesome, man. That was so cool.
She's kind of starting to get this Arnold Schwarzenegger vibe where she's got to come up with a one-liner to walk out to, the whole, like, tell them the North remembers and tell them.
It was so
cool.
Yeah.
I was just, like, goosebumps, and then she smiles just, like, ever so slightly on her walk out, and you're like, damn, that,
what was so cool about her line, though, too, she said, tell them that winter has come. Like, she jacked that from, like, the White Walkers. She was like, fuck it, I'm more badass than the White Walkers. Like, the winter has come, and it's me. Like... That was pretty dope.
It was so good. I mean, best opener by far. And it really set us up, because this was like a decent episode. Like, not the best, but as far as season openers go,
it was. I've heard a lot of people saying it was safe, and I agree it was safe, but it was needed. I think like so much happened at the end of season 6. Like, we had to have a "Where Are They Now" episode. Mm-hmm. We had to know exactly where everyone is and how they're getting set up for season 6, and that's exactly what we got here. We literally saw Cersei making a map on her floor so that she can have her war room ready to go when she starts to discuss her strategy with Jaime and stuff. And
I want to make a special point about that map.
Yeah.
So obviously, from all the trailers, they had that part where they were talking about, there's enemies to the east, enemies to the south, enemies to the west, and enemies to the north. But there was a really neat, if you know your Westeros geography really well. So this kind of gets into the prophecy, where that, Cersei's probably going to get killed by one of her brothers. We've pretty much figured that out already.
yeah,
But in that scene, when the camera came up and was looking down at Cersei and Jaime there, it's important to note, Cersei was standing on the part of Westeros that connects the south and the north, and that's called the neck. Jaime was standing off in the ocean by these little slivers of land that come out called the fingers. Now, I don't want to read too much into that.
Yeah, but like, I want you to.
It was really cool symbology. It's like, so maybe, just maybe, this was like the biggest foreshadow ever.
Wow.
And that Jaime's going to be the one who kills Cersei. Like, that'd be, like, if that ends up being right,
wow,
it's going to be amazing.
Oh it feels like they're growing apart for sure. Every time he looks at her, and let's talk about acting for a second, because like you said, we talked about Walder Frey, Arya at the beginning killed it, and then you jump. We'll skip Bran for now, but you jump into this scene, and the way that Jaime looks at Cersei is like, you are crazy now. And you feel the tension and the divide, and like there's something in between here, and either they're going to have to get on the same page or it's just going to keep getting bigger.
He said all of that without saying anything. Like, that was what was so cool. Like, you could see that in his eyes. You could see almost him falling out of love with her and becoming scared. Uneasy, and starting to plot how he's going to have to power check Cersei eventually, right? Let's stay on that train of thought for a second, too, and talk a little bit more about what was going on in King's Landing this week. There was that moment, one of the knocks that I have against this episode, there was a super TV moment, like, that is typically not the style of Game of Thrones. It was that super TV moment where Jaime sort of says what we've all been discussing, and we discussed pretty much at length on our last episode, where we talk about how is anybody going to beat Daenerys? Like, Cersei is so underpowered, like, she's not going to be able to do this. Jaime essentially in that room brings that up and says, we're outnumbered, like, they've got everybody. And she goes, wait a second. And then they, like, cut to, they're standing on the landing watching Euron Greyjoy's force come in. And it was like this moment that just felt like totally hand-holdy and like this... like an ABC show or something, it didn't feel like it didn't feel genuine or something. Like, how would Jaime not have known that there was a force of 1,000 ships coming into King's Landing at that point? I don't want to get too nitpicky or anything like that, but that was just something that kind of stood out to me or irked me a bit, I guess.
Yeah, that was probably maybe the low point of the episode, but still, like, to see the Iron Fleet, like, on display. Like, here it is. Those ships were badass.
Yep.
I mean, and it's kind of weird because it's like there's not really a whole lot of trees on the Iron Islands, so they got the wood from somewhere. But like to see it on display, it's like, this is cool. This guy means business.
You felt the force of like what Euron is bringing to the table,
Yeah.
And we saw like a total character, like a tonal shift in that character, by the way, too, from what we saw last season with Euron's limited screen time. I mean, super limited screen time. He had that weird like ritual where he was, drowned and became the king of the Salt Throne.
You're all about it.
It just freaks me out, man. It just totally freaks me out.
Drown in it. Let the salt fill your lungs.
Oh, God. But then, to see him now be like this, like, playboy / weird, like, front man of, like, Journey outfit that he was wearing. You know what I mean?
So weird.
Yeah. And sorry, just keep kicking our beer. But I think he's more interesting. I think, like, I'm more interested to see what he brings to the table. And, Joe, I think you're the one who told me this, but in the books, apparently, Euron is much more of an asshole and intimidating and scary of a character than Ramsay was. Right?
Yeah, that's just like what I've heard through the grapevine, not being a reader, but like other people told me.
You got a resident reader too.
That's an accurate statement. I mean, Euron Greyjoy is... I mean, he's a pretty bad guy in the TV show, don't get me wrong. I mean, he like threw his own brother, right?
Yeah, I guess it was.
He's not cutting off dicks yet.
Not yet. We might get there. That's the bar. Well, you're not cutting off a dick yet.
Yeah, so John, tell us, is it more like Ramsay is much more psychotic in his torture methods, but Euron is more of like a genocidal pirate?
That's kind of the vibe I'm getting off. Like, so my scale is always, who would I rather have a beer with?
Your grayscale, please. Please stay on brand.
I would rather have
Please stay on brand.
I would rather have a beer right now with probably Euron, because like, well, he's not cut a dick off yet, and he's kind of interesting. Like Ramsay would just always gave me the willies. Like,
Stop! There's too many puns. Ramsay giving you
now?
willies.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Theon's Willie in particular.
I gotta get off.
Yeah,
that.
I think Euron though is almost he gets a monologue, which is something completely the opposite of the entire everything we know about him, which is great. And he's a comedian about it. He's just like poking at Jaime.
Yeah, the way he was throwing jabs at Jaime, man, you could just see. You're like, don't fuck with the Kingslayer. Like, oh my god.
And like the swag though, like he comes in, he knows Cersei is gonna say no. And he still does it anyway, and he's like, all right, well, I'll be back with something that, and then you might change your mind.
So what do you think the gift's going to be?
Yeah, that was going to be my next topic. I'm in the camp, and I've seen this around the internet too. I feel like it's got to be Tyrion. I think that would mean, because he can do essentially two things there, right? He can go get the revenge that he needs to get on Theon and Yara. So he would be able to engage in a naval battle against Daenerys for maybe a Dragonstone. Maybe before they even get to King's Landing, there's going to be a big naval battle there. And then his ultimate goal being to capture Tyrion and bring Tyrion back and, let Cersei enact her revenge on her brother. So,
yeah, that seems, to me, I don't really know. I feel like I know very little about Euron and what his history is, and I don't think he knows anything about White Walkers. So, and like thinking about Dragonglass or other gems that we know about, it just feels like the only end game is Dany or Tyrion.
Wait a second. How badass would it be, though, if Euron came back with the head of a dragon?
That
would do it.
That would be pretty awesome. Like, he goes and kills one of Daenerys' dragons. Oh, shit. He baits it and kills it or something. Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah, just, like, show the power, for sure. I think like, when you look at Cersei and Euron, too, I don't know what their next play is. Like, he's just gonna kind of go try to fight. I mean, if he goes to try to fight Dany, yeah, he's got a ton of ships, but it feels like she's still way more powerful.
And there was like sort of a to jump around a bit. One of the problems, another problem that I had with this episode is that there was, and this isn't even necessarily a knock against the episode or anything. It just maybe flew in the face of what my expectations were for it. But there wasn't really a sense of urgency in this episode until the very end. I mean, I think the very end when Daenerys got to Dragonstone and came home and said, let's do this, ultimately. But before that, it's kind of like Cersei's taking her time building out her like strategy room, and Jon Snow is going through some of the politics in the North still, and little Lady Mormont is shitting on Lord Glover.
My favorite ever.
Poor Lord Glover, man. Everything Lord Glover says, like Lady Mormont just like shits on him, and he's like, yeah, right. He's like, Lord Glover. You just like, yeah, man up, Lord.